effect did the case have on the families?
Well, the case had different effects on the family, as you can see. One, obviously, which is I would say would be the physical effect, obviously, of having a husband, slapping a wife in front of an in-laws. That's kind of a scene which causes some physical damage, obviously, to the wife, and some emotional damage as well. And that kind of just throws apart the whole family. They had 2 kids, so domestic violence cases like this are very saddening to see, because they have not only physical damage but also emotional damage, which can be even more severe and harder to overcome, especially with 2 children who could grow up without a father, or grow up with a restraining order to their father due to different things. So you never really know what's going to happen and what these little things, or not little things, could escalate to in the future. Any other questions?
I had one regarding the officer's decision. I know you had your decision, what could have been done, and the sources had a different decision, but are there any alternative decisions that could have been done then?
Well, I mean, when an officer is in that situation, obviously there's several different decisions and options they could go about in any given situation. They're obviously trained for that. Obviously me, I'm not an officer, but me just trying to think in a logical way, I came up with what I would probably do in that situation, using different tools I have and whatnot. And obviously these officers who have been in this situation and have been involved in these types of situations before, made their decisions off previous cases they've been involved in, and obviously the circumstances in which they were currently in. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of our ideas were similar. One, call for backup, because if you have more help, they'll obviously make things easier on you and you'll be able to clear out the situation in a better way. And 2 is deal with the situation at hand, whether that has to do with stalling and waiting for your backup, or whether it has to be thinking one step ahead and getting pepper spray and avoiding that physical contact. Whatever it may be, I think all our ideas were similar, but obviously there are hundreds of ways that these type of situations can be involved. So overall, this case has to do with an initial danger, which was, as I mentioned, the danger that was to the families at the house, which then switched to the officer, because then he was the one in danger, which is kind of ironic. An officer at danger, usually they're the ones that are called to clear up the danger. And then from there is what I would do in that situation, what could be done to prevent these repeat calls in the future, because as we talked about, these are problems that haven't been able to be put away with, as they're constantly happening over and over again. Repeat calls are not something new. They're something that have been involved for a while now. And actually, when I was talking to Shannon, she was telling me that counseling is definitely the best way, because she's been in situations in which she was dealing with adults and they acted like kids. I don't know if they had too much pride or what it was, but oftentimes talking to them, getting them to see things in a different way, explaining things to them, what reality is, what it isn't, can really go a long way. So counseling is definitely something that I could see and would hopefully like to see help minimize these types of cases in the future. That's pretty much all I have here for this case regarding domestic violence and the Christmas Eve case. I would first like to thank John and Shannon for helping me out in this assignment. I would like to thank my classmates for not only this video that they will be watching, but also all the videos that they have watched of mine throughout the year, and also my professor. And lastly, I'd like to thank these 3 gentlemen who were able to, listen to me give this spiel. It could be boring at times, but I would like to thank them. Thank you. Today I'll be covering the Christmas Eve case, which has to do with the family disturbance call. In my audience, I have Nick Nahara. On the camera, I have Noah Tepero. And over here, I have Chris Salazar. So as I mentioned, this has to do with the family disturbance call that happened on Christmas Eve. You're actually sent to this house alone, because you're on call alone, because it's Christmas Eve and therefore there are not a lot of people working. You're actually familiar with this address because you have been there multiple times due to a domestic violence call. This house has a husband, a wife, and 2 children which live there. But as you proceed to this house and pull up this time, you see that there's a car in which you're not familiar with in the driveway. So putting 2 and 2 together, realizing it is Christmas Eve, you must think there must be family in town. And it is in fact the drunken father, Charlie's in-laws. So as you get there, you knock on the door, Charlie proceeds to come to the door. He's obviously drunk as usual. He's pretty upset that you're there because every time you show up, it's not a good thing. Past situations, you've been able to calm him down, threatening to take him to jail, and that's calmed him down a little bit. But this time seems a little different. As you get there, you're asking what's going on. You received another call. You can see Charlie's pretty drunk. There's bottles everywhere, and his wife screams, "Lock him up." He's a poor father. She proceeds to go on and is pretty much a nuisance. And their in-laws actually say the same thing. They have pretty negative things to say about Charlie. So things start to escalate. One thing leads to another, and Charlie ends up actually attacking his wife, pulling her hair, and eventually slapping her. So at that point, you proceed to go to Charlie. Things start to get physical and actually put him in handcuffs. And once you get him in handcuffs, his wife and in-laws actually threaten to attack you. So it seemed as if you had taken care of the situation, but in fact, one situation led to another situation. So now, taking an overview of everything, let's put yourself in the victim's shoes, which in this case would be the wife and somewhat the in-laws. Obviously, Charlie was handcuffed and was going to be taken away. This would have been a positive thing for them, but they acted in a negative way and they didn't seem to like this. Why could they have reacted this way? Maybe that Charlie had threatened them that if he was to ever go to jail, that once he got out, he would beat them up even more, or not really sure. To put yourself in those people's shoes is very difficult, but there has to be some reason why they retaliated, because they did in fact want Charlie to go away at first. Now, the danger. At first, the situation was very dangerous for the victim, which was the wife, because it was around a drunken husband who had supposedly abused her before, beaten her up, and now he has done it again. So that was the initial violence. Now the violence that has occurred is your violence that is to the officer, because he is now outnumbered 4 against 1, or 3 against 1 if you want to not count Charlie, because he's handcuffed at this point. So that's the danger that occurs now. So there was 2 different situations, one which was the initial danger, and now which is the secondary danger. What would I do if I was the officer? First, as I'm sure this officer did, I would, right when I get to the house and see that it's a lot of stuff going on, pretty anxious Charlie, drunk. His wife has been in this situation before. She's probably very angry. I would obviously call for backup. Knowing that it's a holiday, I'm sure backup would not come, but backup would probably come from another station that could help me out. From there on, I would proceed to, as I handcuff Charlie, I would try to calm down the wife and the in-laws and see if anything could be done. From there, I would talk to them, explain to them the situation, and try to stall until my backup actually arrives, and then see what the situation would be from there. With 2 officers, it would obviously be a lot easier. One could take Charlie, one could deal with the other people. That's what I would do regarding handling the situation. As I mentioned, for me, a partner would obviously make things a lot easier because we could split up the responsibilities. One could deal with the aggressor, and other people could really watch the environment and see what's going on with all that. Repeat calls. Seeing as this is a repeat call, it's a tough situation because it's something that officers have to deal with a lot. And repeat calls can only be put away with if the aggressor goes to jail or if something changes in the relationship. Oftentimes therapy can be something that can help a lot because it can change the aggressor and the people involved change their attitude and their behaviors. From there, I actually have 2 sources which are police officers, and I talk to them about the situation, what they would do. The people with a lot of experience, the people that have been doing this for a while and have been in different difficult situations. My first is John Riley, and I actually asked him what he would do and what his options would be in handling this situation. He said obviously his first step would be calling for backup. The second step would be leaving is not an option, because at that point it would completely mess everything up. It would put other people in danger. From there, he said he would take it step by step, trying to do what he can and wait for his officer to come and help him. Secondly, if he had a partner, it would help. Yes, as I mentioned, he said it would definitely help because they could split up the roles and take it from there, which would, hopefully maintain the violence and keep it to a minimum level. Repeat calls. No special formula to stop repeat calls. Only what can be done is, trying to prevent it, talking to the people, getting as much information about the situations as possible. And like I said, talking can be a very good remedy. My second source is Shannon Campbell. And what would she have done in this situation? She also would have called for backup. She believes that in a difficult situation, she could take them all on, but this would take different couple strategies. She would then try to talk with the victims and have them calm down, put herself in their shoes and understand why they could be angry, because it is a difficult situation to be in. She also tried to think one step ahead. For example, if they tried to get aggressive, maybe she'd take out pepper spray, which would help to ease the situation. The second one, would a partner help? Yes, just as I said myself, and how John Riley said, a partner would help to split up the roles, which would just make it easier on both parties because they would have less to deal with. And thirdly, dealing with repeat calls, she says that the best thing to do is counseling. Because oftentimes aggressors, it's a cycle. They get out of jail, they do it again. But counseling can actually change their mindset and actually prevent them from doing it. Unlike jail time, which can oftentimes just get them more upset and more likely to repeat again. Also, from there, oftentimes things are childish situations in which it's retaliation. Well, one person did this to me, so I'm going to do this to them. You explain to them that that is childish and that it shouldn't happen, and you stop that from happening again. In this situation, I learned a lot. I learned that domestic violence is a serious problem, that it does happen a lot more than you think, and that oftentimes it is not dealt with the first time, as we see with repeat calls. You would wish it would be something that would happen once and be put away with, but unfortunately there are people that deal with these type of situations on a pretty regular basis, and there's not much they can do because they're in a very difficult situation. The importance of the officer is crucial, because without the officer, these situations would continue to go on and would not be put to an end. The officer can deal with this, can put an aggressor in prison, and can actually stop this from happening. From there, they are actually trained professionals, obviously, and they are meant to deal with these type of situations. They're meant to deal with domestic violences. They've been in this type of situations where a husband or a wife is aggressive towards each other or towards a child, towards another family member, anything dealing with domestic violence. They are obviously there and they're prepared to deal with that. But as I previously mentioned, putting everything together, this case has to do with a repeat offense, in a sense, a repeat call, I should say, in which a husband attacks his wife and puts her and the rest of the family in a difficult situation. The situation then flips, puts the officer in a difficult situation. And from there, there's different things that must be taken into consideration. Must take into consideration the family's perspective, the husband's perspective, what could be going through their mind, and what could be done differently. Now I'd like to see if anyone in my audience has any questions. What did you get out of this? Anything you'd like to ask regarding domestic violence?
It's a very interesting cycle. I want to know what your position is, whether you prefer putting a repeat offender through jail time or putting them through therapy.
I would say that probably a little bit of both would be best, seeing as jail time is something that's probably inevitable and something they have to serve, but at the same time, I don't think that's the most successful method to stop them from doing it again, so I think it has to be a mix of both. And I think counseling would be something that could be very successful and could help them, make better decisions in the future, which would put not only themselves in a better position, but the people around them. Any other questions?